folks, to another Bon V podcast. Today I'm joined with Amanda Jhonson from Spectrum. Thank you, Amanda, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And we're going to talk about things money.
Yes.
Now, as you know, we had a brief conversation before we started. The channel's aimed at people wanting to come to France. So, we need you to give us a little bit of advice as how to best cope with your money.
Perfect.
So I had a little look on your website. I think most people think we just wing this, but I do a little bit of research in the beginning. And you offer a financial overview. So maybe expand on that first for us.
Yeah, sure. So if you were living in the UK, for example, most people would go to their branch manager or their bank manager or building society or have an independent financial advisor. And they would be regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. And they would sit down with you and work out what your earnings are, what your savings are, when you want to retire, and they start building everything up for you. And the same applies in France. But finding someone that you can speak to in your own language is really important, because if you went to your local branch, here, it'd be very difficult to get an English-speaking financial advisor, and also they tend to work for a particular bank. Okay, so you don't have any complete independence. Now, pre-Brexit, if you had a UK financial advisor, their qualifications and the fact that they give you advice, it was passported into Europe. But post-Brexit, that is no longer the case.
Yeah.
So you've got a situation where your UK financial advisor is no longer able to advise you, and your French financial advisor doesn't speak the same language. So what I do is I would sit down with someone and we first work out how long are they wanting to come here for. Are they wanting to come for an adventure? Some clients have a 10-year plan. Some want to be here for forever, but then one of them dies. So is it a joint dream? Would they want to be here on their own? And from that, we can then gauge whether we should just leave things as they are, whether we should move them into something more tax efficient and, most important, tax compliant. Because what you don't want to do is think that you've got something that it works in the UK, but you've got a huge amount of tax.
Just a quick question. The carte séjour, the titre de séjour we have to have, there are some for 5 years and there are some for 10 years.
Yeah.
So obviously the advice you would be giving would possibly be dependent on the period of time the carte séjour is valid for?
Yes, in a way, but what we also want to do is to make sure whatever we give advice for, whatever the solution is, it's 100% portable.
Right.
So what you need to do is make sure that you might come to France for 4 years and then go, it was a bit wet, a bit cold, I think we'd like to try Spain. So once you'd applied for your visa in Spain, what you'd want is something that you could pick up and move from France, because it might be that the timing's not right for you to cash that in, or you might have some early exit charges. So it wouldn't be advantageous to do so. So what we do is make sure that whatever solution is, you can have it, you can put it up and take it with to Spain or to Italy or to Ireland, or go back to the UK with them. So I think being international, not only do we know all the rules of each of the countries that we advise in, but we speak the language, but we also originally from the UK, so we know the sort of things that you've got and the rules there. So yeah, and I've got clients, because we don't, how we're remunerated, we don't charge for consultation fees. So many clients go, oh, that's really great, and then they go, oh, but if when you've done all the work and you present to us, would we have to buy it? And the answer is no, not at all. You might say, I like that bit, but I don't like that bit, or I don't want any of it. That's absolutely fine. I've been with Spectrum for 13 years now. Celebrated 13 years last couple of weeks ago. And because I'm paid on an ongoing basis by how the value of the investments, pension, then I wake up on the 1st of January, I pretty much know what I'm going to be paid. So for me, it's to see what I can do for people. If people who've got multi-millionaires, they never really need to worry about money because there's always a solution for them. If you haven't got any money, well, there's nothing to worry about either. Well, different things to worry about.
Yeah.
But it's the people in the middle who I feel need probably the most attention. So yeah, and it would involve a chat for, well, I like the sound of my own voice, as you will find out. So about an hour and a quarter of someone's time, and then after that, we need to work out that we can work for each other. So you don't want it's going to be a long-term relationship.
And in terms of different kinds of investment, give us a sort of quick synopsis of the options that would be there for people.
Okay, so it's pretty much the same with any financial planning. So first thing you're looking at is, okay, how much money do you need immediate access to? So are you having any plans? So if someone's going to put a swimming pool, and they bought a house but they want to have a swimming pool, then you need to put that money into somewhere that you've got easy access. You also want to make sure that you're not paying any tax on that money while it's there. So if it's earning some interest, what you want, you don't want the French government to take all the interest that you've had away. So for those sort of instant savings and planned, if someone wants to move it and maybe they've spoken to one of your other guests who did the currency, Kathy, they might decide that it's better to bring that money over to euros, in which case we would look at something like a Livret A account. You allow 22,950 euros per person, and you have instant access. There's no income tax on the interest, and no social charges. So that would be the first stop. And then we would then look at, well, if somebody then maybe they're going to do a new roof in about 4 years, we'd look at something longer term. But again, they need to have that money absolutely. So, and then the third part would be investments. And that's what I really love and specialise in. But that's really for anything at least 5 years plus. Right. And the reason we look at 5 years plus is if you look at the whole of the financial markets going back the last 100 years, there's only been one 5-year period, and that was 1974 to 1979. That if you had invested some money, you wouldn't have got back your amount you invested. But if you left that 6 years, so put it in 74, took it out 1980, you would have got all your money back and then some. Right. So timing is everything. And if we're looking at a long term, then we will look at tax efficient in multi-currency. So for some people, if their money is already in euros, then fine, we can invest in euros. Some clients, the money's in dollars, we can do dollars, Swiss francs. Often if someone's got GBPs, again, as I said earlier on, it depends where they're going back to. So if they are coming to France for forever, but when they died, the money's going back to the UK, then it might be a good idea to keep it in sterling because it's going back to sterling when they're no longer here. Right. So you're taking an extra risk. And I know with your job, you've seen over the last, 10, 15 years, the exchange rate has been all over the place. So that's the sort of procedure we have a look at, and then there's different types of things depending on how they fit with the and make sure they fit with the.
Because Spectrum is a European.
Yes.
Because when I looked at the website, you could see Spain, Portugal. So you've given, for example, someone like me a financial overview. Why then would we perhaps come to Spectrum?
Okay, but
Well,
I think the thing is that for me, it's having that continuity. So I've recently had some clients who were here and they've now gone to Spain because the cost of living is cheaper. It's warmer. Actually, we should be going to Spain, shouldn't we? And
No, we don't want those staples.
so what I did was I found out where they were going, and then I introduced them to one of my colleagues.
Right.
So
it's a smooth transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's all the same company, and we all have the same values. And I think that's the most important. But also, we've got generally, if we have a look at what happens in certain European countries, they do, other countries take those things on board. So it's really useful and a good way of sharing ideas as well. But for the client, it's that continuity and the fact that Spectrum's been around for a long time. I think Glen Eagles came back last Friday, and we were there celebrating our 20th anniversary as a business. So quite proud of that.
Yeah, well done. Talking about sort of different kinds of investments, a lot of people will have, say, premium bonds in the UK. And also, when my children were little, I had national savings bonds, which matured when they were 16. So it was a nice lump sum. They both got their motorcycles off that, as kids do in France. So how would these kind of investments compare to, say, an assurance vie over here as a sort of a savings plan?
Okay, so when we're looking at that, the first thing we're looking at is the taxation of it. So when I first came to France, which was the end of 2005, beginning of 2006, we completed our first tax return, and we went to the taxman, and we said we've got some premium bonds for my daughter, and he was like, "Oh, don't need to know about that." Just poo-pooed it. Yeah. If we have a look at what's happened since 2006, both politically and fiscally, everybody now, every government wants to know who's got what where. So we've also got the common reporting standards. So when you fill out your French tax return here, you have to declare if you have a UK or you have a bank account that's outside France. Yeah. Okay, so you would put that down, and that includes premium bonds. So if we then go back to premium bonds, and good old Ernie, if you won £1 million, for example, and you're living in the UK, that £1 million would be tax free. If you won £1 million and you're living in France, then there would be a capital gains on that £1 million. So thankfully, capital gains is never 100%. So you would keep 700,000, and the French government would say, "We'll have that 300,000. Thank you very much." So that same applies to when you're getting your premium bonds and you get they have to draw every month, and you get your checks, or you have the money reinvested and buy extra premium bonds. That money has to be declared, and then they work out whether it's better for you to add it onto your household income or whether you pay the flat rate. If you have the money in, use the assurance fee, and you've made some money, then part of having the assurance fee, you're not paying any capital gains tax, you're not paying any income tax. What happens is you're basically deferring the tax. So it'll only be when you take the lid off and say, actually, I want to take some money out, there's a tax calculation. So it's much better from a tax point of view. And secondly, more importantly, is that if you then want to take sort of an income from there, then it will be what proportion of the money that you've taken out is your original capital, and then the remaining will only be a small amount of gain, and that's based on the amount you've taken out, not on the whole amount. Right. So it's a bit. We have a calculation that we do, but it just means that it's really, really tax efficient. Once you've held it for 8 years, you get an extra tax allowance, and that works out at €4,600 per person. So if you're a husband and wife or partners, you can have an extra 9,200 in your tax regime. That's very nice, thank you very much. And finally, if somebody was in premium bonds and you pass away, then the premium bonds will be taken into account for any death duties. If it's in the insurance fee, and you were under the age of 70 when you took the insurance fee out, not when you died, when you took it out, you have an allowance of €152,500 per beneficiary with no death duties. So you're saving money because if you win any money, there's no capital gains tax. If you're taking any income from it, it's far more tax efficient. No death duties. So it's a bit of a win-win, really.
The Livre A, which you mentioned earlier, we have them. And the good thing about them is when one of the partners dies, it actually can pass straight on to the surviving spouse without the notaire having to be involved. So it's a nice way of knowing that there will be money there for you that's not going to be frozen while they sort out probate, etc. over here. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah, and the same applies with the assurance fee. So we would sit down with clients and work out, is it in their interest to have it in joint names? And that will be dependent on their marriage regime. I'll go into that in a minute. Or they could have it in sole names and then just make the person beneficiary. If it is in joint names, it's always on a second death basis. So all that would happen is the client would need to notify me. All the companies that we use are happy to take my certification of death certificate, so they don't need to have it certified by the notaire. And then everything would just carry on. So it would either be paid out, and that's paid out within 30 days, 30 business days, or if it was joint life second death, then it would just continue as is. So again, you've got the same. You don't have to wait for probate.
Another subject, taxation. As an agent, I get asked, what do I do about my tax, etc. And I think it's not my area of expertise. The best thing you can do is find an accountant.
Absolutely.
So would I send them there, or is there something that you could advise them as far as taxation is concerned?
Okay. Sometimes when people talk about taxation, we have to have a knowledge of taxation because that's part of it. But we're not tax specialists and we're not accountants. And we have to be very careful what is covered under our remit and what isn't. So I work with, I've got a really good accountant that I work with, but he's at capacity. But I also work with quite a few, we'll like to call them hand holders. I'm sure they've got a more professional name than that. And what they would do is they'll complete your tax return for you. So you will send them your information and they usually have a questionnaire and then they will complete that for you. And depending on how simple your personal circumstances are, depends on which level that you need to speak to. If in doubt, go to your tax office.
Because there are different regimes.
There are, absolutely.
I have a different one for our personal, the agency work, and the bar that my husband and I have together. There's all different, and there's different regulations on different types of companies. It's a bit of I've been here nearly 2 decades, and I still don't understand the tax system.
It is really, really hard. I think the most simple way of looking at it, and if many of people from the UK are coming to buy a house in France, then they'll be used to the UK system. So if we rewind a little bit, in the UK system, every person has an allowance. I think it's top of the head, about £12,000, I think. And then, so up to that amount, you don't pay any tax. And then the next, I think it's probably about £30,000. You're paying 20%. I know there's a bit of a hiatus in 2022 when it was seen that we were going to put it down and it caused mayhem. So we'll skip over from that. And then from about £45,000 upwards to about 125,000, you pay 40%, then over that 45%. Which, if you've got husband and wife, or you've got a couple and they're both working and using all their allowances, that's fine. But if you've got someone that's earning 100,000 a year and you've got a stay-at-home mum or dad that isn't, then there's a bit of a loss of an allowance. So here in France, you're taxed personally as a household. So my daughter's 22. She's just finished her university. It was in our interest to have her on our tax return. So therefore, we get an extra allowance.
Yes, because there's what you call the children à la charge.
Yes, yeah.
To the charge of the parents, basically.
Absolutely.
And if they're working, that sort of stops it.
Yeah.
20, 21 or 22.
Yeah.
But if they're in full-time education, that continues.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, and the reason that the French government brought that in is, we know that the world has an ageing population. One of the statistics that came up last week by one of our fund managers that we were chatting to, he was saying by 2030, out of every 100 people in Japan, 80 will be over the age of 65. So it's not going to take a genius to work out that there isn't going to be enough people doing the work. Now, France introduced the tax allowances for children after the Second World War because it lost so many men and it wanted everyone to keep having a population. So in France, you're taxed, as you say, as your household. So if you've got a couple, for example, living here in France that are retired, if they're earning about €28,000 a year, they're not going to be paying any income tax. Now, they may well have some social charges, but they're completely different. If you had a couple that had one child, then the couple would have one full allowance each, and then they'd share half the child. So they'd then start looking at around about 38,000 before they start paying any tax. And they do. It's really good because obviously the more children you have, it does cost more, but and then you get what they call a fiscal number. Yeah. And from that fiscal number, it opens up other benefits that are entitled to you. So if you're a young family, whatever this figure is, it then depends how much you pay for your school dinners. It depends whether you're eligible to have some holiday vouchers. It's whether the children want to go to play centre, the fee that you will pay. So it's really fair, and it encourages people to have more children.
Yeah, there's also the allocation that they will send you to buy your school supplies. Yeah. Because each child has to supply their own pencils, pens, books, etc. here. And you get a July, it usually comes. Yeah. You get one in July. And you go out to the supermarket and you buy everything that you get on the list from the school.
Thank goodness we don't have to do that anymore.
Oh, no. All passed. Hurrah.
Massive rugby scrum. Yeah. But yeah, it really is because it's based on families. So if you have people that are looking to come to France, so when I came, Alexandra was 5, and it was just a different world. It was very, very family focused, family community.
That hasn't changed much in the last 20 years.
No, not at all. And it's one of the reasons why we'll always stay in France because it's just fab. It's lovely.
Someone asked me once, what do you like about it? It's just home.
Yeah.
It's home.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think I've said that before in one of my other podcasts.
It is. It really does. It's gaining that work-life balance is much easier.
So it is important. We've got to stay on track.
Yes,
so it is important to get the advice that we need.
Yes.
There are also some schemes available. Just recently that we've had in tax rebates, tax credits for the elderly.
Yeah.
And energy bill energy contributions. There's
So
that
that-
going about just now. And there's also a scheme to encourage you to actually get your washing machine and things repaired
Yes.
rather than
Yeah.
chuck them out and buy a
Yeah.
new one.
So if you want to know whether you're eligible, because a lot of these are income dependent, means tested, that's the word. If you go to your local Marie, okay, and go see your secretary, she will tell you exactly what you're entitled to. And that's everything from whether you can have your insulation for €1, and she'll be able to put you in contact with companies that they've worked with.
Yeah.
Okay. To whether, I think the latest one was that came out last couple of weeks, was that if you use your car for work and your income is under a certain amount, you can claim €100 towards your fuel
cost.
So again, like everything, you go to your local Marie, and if they don't know the answer, then go to your local tax office.
Some of it can be automatic. Because, I mean, I got an email, so they're obviously trawling through the tax returns.
Yeah.
And I think it was, I can't remember how much it was, but it was a nice Christmas bonus.
Yeah.
The 200, it's been 100 and 200 euros for energy bills for small businesses. And recently, just as a personal thing, we had our big hedge cut. And we sort of, because we're in the village, we got a certificate from the gardener to say present that with your tax returns, and that will give you a rebate.
Yeah,
the fact
absolutely.
That you spent €500 getting your hedge cut.
And the reason that you can do that on certain works is because what's happening is you're paying VAT for the work that's done. So you're claiming a certain amount back because you've paid the VAT. So if you've got Joe Bloggs to do it, and you haven't paid the TVA, then and it's the same. So
because you have to have that attestation from the actual registered artisan.
Yes, you do. And it's the same with things like so if you've got couples that are wanting to move to this area or anywhere in France, and they're just worried about, well, what will happen when they get a bit older? Can they have sort of equivalent of what we used to have home help? In France, it's called ADMR. Again, you would go to see your local Marie and they would put you in contact. All of that is tax deductible too. So, and once you get over the age of 65, you're entitled to so many hours a week anyway. So, yeah, really good.
So it's worth finding out about these things.
Absolutely.
And it's worth talking to someone like Amanda. Thank you so much, Amanda, for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
It's been very informative, and I hope you've all found it interesting. Watch out for further podcasts and films on the Bon V. And as always, till next time, thanks for watching.